sentence begins with a capital letter. A capital letter is a letter that's big. A capital letter is not a small letter. A capital letter is big, big, big. A sentence ends with a period, or an exclamation, or a question mark. A sentence always ends with a period, or an exclamation, or a question mark.
Hey, everyone. It's 372 pages we'll never get back. This is Michael J. Nelson along with Connor Listoka. Hey, Connor.
Hey, Mike. Thrown back on my heels by this unconventional start.
What is happening? Everyone is wondering what's going on. This is the podcast where we go through books we probably will not like. And we are currently in the middle of Charles E. Harris's book, Truckin' Through Time. We're not in the middle of it, Connor.
Yeah,
we're at the end.
We have finished trucking through time. We have trucked through time.
We have fully trucked. Time is behind us now. Time no longer is an issue for us. But the reason, you ask, why would we start the show not with our tried and true theme song composed by Connor Listoka and Ennio Morricone, I believe. Who did you collaborate with?
Yeah, roped in Ennio. He comes out of retirement every now and then to do a prestige pick like The Hateful Eight for Tarantino, or a modest podcast by two guys he's never heard of. Right. That's his stated policy.
Anyway, Connor is just returning from an undisclosed location. I assume everything is okay, although I've heard rumors, whispers of terrible road rash, and I heard the word contusions.
Road rash and contusions. That was not only the morning zoo team I listened to in the Colorado area. That was what I suffered while mountain biking. But that was very painful, scary at times. I'm perfectly fine, though. But that was not my only regret from the trip. My biggest regret was that I was in Denver, which is, an hour and a half from the Wyoming border. And I was...
By truck?
By truck, of course, yes. At a solid 56 miles an hour. But I was unable to convince Lauren to travel to Wyoming with me so we could cross the border, check the back of a menu to see if the claim was true. It was I may forever regret it, but the rest of the trip was great, other than the road rash and contusions. But yes, we're back, and I received a weird email from you partly through the time. I was off the grid for a while, but I get out of the woods. I see this email from Mike being like, "We've got to start the show with the dumb sentence theme, because my God, it may have been the dumbest sentence we've ever read."
Yeah, it certainly was. And, as a welcome back, and for those who are Patreon people and others who listen to it, you mentioned trying to get Lauren to drive to a place to look at menus. I was able Bridget was able to share some of the pain that she's endured through this in our last episode. And you know what? She did not. I was giving her a reason to say, like, no, I quite enjoy when you read me sentences. She's like, no, it's like when someone tells you a joke and you have to laugh. Right? Yes. I'm like, geez, really?
Wow.
I thought I was selecting the funniest, the best. She's like, yeah, still.
Wow. Well, then clearly context is the problem. She needs to be, she needs a lot more exposure to what's going on. That's the...
I keep erasing her Kindle and only putting Trucking Through Time on it, so she has no choice. But that doesn't go over well. That doesn't wash. So anyway, yes, the dumbest sentence. And I'd like to welcome you back from the woods, and by letting you have a crack at reading the dumbest sentence anyone has or ever will read from Truckin' Through Time. And we'll get to it in context, but even out of context, it is wonderful.
No, sure.
So,
all right.
So please, have at it.
This is Dale. He's lecturing the governor. The truth I'm speaking of is your hatred for a people you don't understand because of lack of want. Here it is. You have to want an understanding before you are able to have understand. I'm going to do it one more time, just in case you spit your stuff out halfway through. You have to want an understanding before you are able to have understand. Let's
say you got that from your friend's phone. How would you try to, dig back through the spell check.
Sure, yeah,
to try to get to what that actually means.
It comes out of a fortune cookie, and you have to parse it. You have to you have to want to understand before you're able to understand. I guess the general hates the Indians so much that he can't even begin to have understand because he does not want an understanding.
Yes,
that's the. You're not gonna just like learn French. You have to want to learn French in order to make the effort. You can't sit there like Jack Handy said and just want the money. You have to go out there and earn the money.
Right, but it's not a misspelling of understood. He thinks that there is something called an understanding in that context. You have to want an understanding
before you're able to have understand. Yeah, he's fully nouned it. But yeah, and then the using of I read the first sentence for context just to show that he did use understanding correctly there. But then the sentence that follows it up is quite a treat as well, because the sentence that follows it up is, yes, these people are different from the white man. Bold claim. We have not heard this thesis yet so forward in this book. Yes, these people are different from the white man, but not indifferent unless you make them indifferent.
That would have been one that I risked. Bridget with the frying pan. I actually read that to her after we did.
Oh wow, this will be the one that turns her whole understanding around. That's maybe her problem, is that she does not want an understanding.
I think, and she was just she was indifferent. I was trying to shake her out of that indifferent. How does he use it in context again?
These people are different from the white man, but not indifferent. Unless you make them indifferent. And that's, I don't know, that could be like, a 19th century wordplay that people thought was clever. Like, they're different, but not indifferent. Like, but it's, using it 3 times in one sentence is, right there. And, it brought to mind this quote, which is not the first time we've ever discussed it on this, but,
I know what you're going to say. I think someone sent it into Patreon, but so yeah, go ahead.
If we learn to care for others, to respect others, we'll learn how to care for, to respect our country.
Yeah. That is going way back. That is an early riff track short.
The early riff track short, and I think we brought it up with Ernest Cline. I think we pulled it. So yeah, it all ties in. It's all circular. So if you want that understanding, folks, you need it before you're able to have understand.
Boy, there's a lot of Grandpa No moments in this, especially in the upcoming chapters. But that was one of them where, if you don't know the word, don't try it. Just use a word that you do know. There's going to be one there that's going to be fine.
Sure, but it's not like the word is. It's not like it's a complex word that you're tossing out there to sound learned. It's the word understand.
Well, yeah, that and indifferent though. I mean, like,
sure,
yeah, that's
right.
not what it means.
They're not undifferent. That would have been even better.
Yes,
but yes, your prediction was that everyone was going to send this sentence to us, and you were correct. As it was sent in by Paige, Chris, Janelle, Elizabeth, Justin, and others, I'm sure, all sent in. You want to have an understanding before you are able to have understand. So well done on that prediction.
Thank you.
Do we want to read the other dumb sentences now, or after we've covered them in?
Let's save it for later. Okay. Our other departments, except we obviously will not have fan fiction.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, but there's opportunities in the future, and in fact, on Twitter, people are writing fan fiction about the podcast now. So that's
good heavens!
It's sort of an all-encompassing worldview. We're going on a road trip with Ernest Cline. He's telling us "damn it, boy" from the back seat. It's sort of it's like a it's like a hidden picture thing where all the or one of those paintings by Hieronymus Bosch where you can just look and all different things from the podcast are happening throughout this. So that is by Janelle as well. I tweeted it yesterday.
Hieronymus Bosch, is that like a Where's Waldo thing?
But yes, it's and it's funny you mentioned Grandpa No moments earlier, because I during the course of our live show a week or two ago before I went out to the woods, made a bunch of people who had Trucking Through Time books in Nashville. Signed at least, I don't know, 5 of them, and Grandpa No was a common refrain exchanged with those listeners. So
I was shocked to when we do our shows there, we do a little thing for the credits, and just to greet the people there because they're standing out in the hot sun waiting for our show. So I'll run down the line and just sort of high five people and greet people. And I high fived at least 3 books of Trucking Through Time. It was quite.
Yeah. Again, it is always strange to see them out in public, to talk about them in public, but it's a lot of fun. And on that note, we should promote the live recording we're doing.
That's right. Speaking of high-fiving people, that's all we're going to do at that show.
Yes.
Yeah, give them the deets.
Sisyphus Brewing, Minneapolis, same place we did our last one, on September 18th, which is a Wednesday. We're going to do a live recording of the podcast with Like Trees Walking, your other podcast, with David Berge. So we're going to get together. We're going to discuss to be determined, and just have some good time, and we'll try to do a better job of recording it this time.
And in that we will record it at all. Yes, but Dave Berge and I on my other podcast, Like Trees Walking, we have not watched it yet, but we will separately, much like reading this book, we will watch the movie Christian Mingle with Lacey Chabert, I believe.
Is that a Hallmark actress?
Yes, she is. She's in the stable of Hallmark. But
she's from Mean Girls, right?
Yeah, she was. What
Yeah.
was she on as a? Oh, she was in Lost in Space as a little girl with the digital monkey, I believe.
All right, Lacey. It does not sound. It sounds like the exact opposite of a Hallmark movie actress. But
was she on Party of Five? Is that what she was? A little
looks
kid
like
on?
she was too. Yes.
Okay, that's her fame.
What's the rundown of the movie?
Christian Mingle is the dating site for Christians, and they made it's a movie based on a dating site, and it supposedly is just wretched. So we're just going to run down, like how do you do this? Anyway,
right.
so we're going to watch more bad things.
All right, so everyone, I'll watch it too. You guys should all watch it so you know what they're talking about at the show. On our last show, we talked about the Ready Player One movie, which 15% of the audience might have seen at that point in time.
Yeah, I think if you're including us,
sure.
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll maybe do something that's a bit more relatable. But we also have been doing this for a little longer, so maybe we'll have more people coming out to the show to who know what we're talking about.
That would be a good help. Yeah. Just brush up a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that's September 18th. Sisyphus Brewing. Good beer there at Sisyphus.
Absolutely.
I've never been disappointed. And there are shuffleboard tables out in the other room. So if you come in early, play some shuffleboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back to the book. We had left off at chapter 17, and so far we have had 2 truckers, Chad and Dale, go back in time to what they believe to be pretty much any given point in history. Time is fluid back here, and we get to a lot more anachronisms in terms of historical events, technology that they are using that was not invented yet. We'll cover those as we get to them. But anyway, they save the child Slim Fox, who turns out to grow up to be Sitting Bull. We are not sure how they decided on that fact at this exact moment, but they are now trying to prevent his entire tribe from being wiped out by the United States Army, led by a vindictive general, his right-hand man, Collins. And as we left them last time, they have escaped the general's clutches by tying up the captain and escaping to go send a telegram to the War Department in Washington.
As far as I can tell, one of many captains, but I don't. But I don't know.
This is Captain
Collins.
No. Collins is the bad guy. Collins is the evil.
This is Captain Troy.
Captain Troy, also known as Tim, Captain Tim Troy, and he has his wife Christina Troy. So we come to with reveille sounding at 5:30 a.m. and the men mustered out for the morning head count. All were present and accounted for except the captain, Sergeant Zero Hera, went to check and found him bound and gagged. So, they left him there all night.
Yes.
They did this little tie him up game to get a quick escape, and I'm sure that the captain was like, well, when they don't hear from me in 5 minutes, they'll come and find me like this. But instead, he was tied up in his office for hours. which I found to be a delightful detail.
I was so shocked by Sergeant Zero Hera being back that I was... I'd missed the fact that you're right. Of course, he's been the ruse could have been like, "Hey, tie him loosely, and then I'll just slip them over myself." Like, I'm just taking them off. But nope, verisimilitude. We need to make it look real,
right? But so later in the book, later in this chapter, the general is very upset with him, and he orders him put in manacles and led away. And I thought at that point the captain might have been like, you know what, I've developed a taste for this. So yeah, buckle me up, big boy. I have this is not going to be a problem.
Look, I know we don't pick on typos, but right off the bat, this sentence got to me. Well, en route to the general's office, a courier rode in with an urgent message for the commander of the fort, and. It's just, right off the bat,
right?
I just had to mark that one down. Well, en route to the general's office. It just feels like Grandpa is, he's headed out to one of his beloved games. He's not interested anymore.
Yeah. Oh no. The poker game is started, and the guy even brought like a erotic deck, and Grandpa is very very into what's happening there. I like also that we can, from going forward, we've done this a lot. We can cage any pointing out of typos by saying we don't usually pick on the typos.
Yes.
But no
it's
offense,
like having a ventriloquist dummy and insulting people. You're big and ugly. Now, come on, now, Jimmy.
Right,
we don't do this kind of thing.
Yeah. We should wipe out the Sioux. But no, like there is, for every one we point out, there's a dozen going unnoticed, and they do stack up these last couple chapters.
Yeah, we're not being overly picky for those who aren't following along.
And then so the courier who's writing to the office, he salutes the general and tells him of the escape and handed over the message. And then when the captain is finished telling him how he was overpowered. Any guesses how the rich character of the general is going to respond to this, to hearing that his prisoners have escaped?
Well, this is a thing that happens. It's not ideal, but we
the
will
general
solve
threw the
this
message on the desk and began to rave. So no word on whether that's he has a pacifier in his mouth and to prevent him from grinding his teeth together because of the ecstasy he's taken. But the other thing about that was that the telegram that the courier brought says urgent, and it says Sergeant Zero Hera, and the captain looked at the message which said urgent and then back to the general. So those two are pretty much doing the office takes. Just like looking down at this message back at the general as he continues ranting unabated while this whole thing is playing out, which amused me as well.
They're doing trombone zooms into the letter that's left untouched, like the comic zooms.
Yes.
One of the things so this leads me to an interesting thing. I dove to the dark web again.
Whew.
Because of this tendency we've brought up many times before, and it happens in spades here, the tendency to have a character speak at length before it is explained who it is in what manner they are speaking.
Incredible.
And so this is the general. This is it, Captain. I want those two men in custody, whatever the cost. If they went to that Indian village, I will personally take a company of troops and drag them out. This certainly proves their guilt. They are spies, and I'll see them hang. Have Collins scout around the fort and pick up their trail. It should be easy to follow. Do this immediately. The general shouted. So this confusion that he puts in there, it made me wonder, is this a thing elsewhere? And in fact, it is. I found a couple of this is interesting.
Sure, yeah, it sounds like it.
Some auditions of actors when they get a piece and they don't have the stage direction or the thing up front. They put it at the end. This can lead to a lot of confusion.
So like I'm Ron Burgundy style type of things where you get to the end
exactly.
and you realize,
Yeah, and some famous examples here. So I'm just going to. I'm going to play these. Here we go. I collected them. They're sort of famous. I think you'll recognize.
Sure, yeah.
them.
15. This is Vito Corleone. Okay, Mr. Brando, we're rolling. We've known each other for many years, but this is the first time you ever came to me for counsel or for help. Let's be frank here. You never wanted my friendship. Instead, you come into my house on the day my daughter is to be married and you ask me to do murder for money.
Says Vito Corleone quietly but with constrained menace. Should I do it again?
I think we've got it.
Okay, we're doing Wicked Witch of the West. Go ahead, Margaret.
Is it okay if I improvise a little?
Of course. Make it your own.
Oh, well, okay. Let me see. I'll get you, my pretty, and you know what? As long as I'm here and he's available, I'll get your little dog, too. Oh, that should be fun. Oh, look at those. They're so cute. I'm really enjoying that as darling.
I'm sorry, stop. It's actually a threat. You're not shopping.
Well, I'm not shopping. Well, why don't you just put that up front instead of at the end of the line? Well, curse you! Curse you!
Yeah, my fault, sorry.
You asshole!
And speed. Maximus Meridius, take one.
Are you not entertained? He's not paying attention. I'll ask this guy. Excuse me, bud. Are you not entertained? Oh, I'm just reading now that's to be shouted to a Coliseum crowd. Got it, mate. It's all right.
So you can see there's a lot of confusion when you don't just put it up front.
Yeah, it rendered Maximus. He sounded like De Niro in Taxi Driver when he didn't get that direction.
Right. So luckily they got that straightened out. But Charles, come on, put it up front.
Are tapes just running on movie sets all the time? Like that Christian Bale tape was kind of famous, but I didn't realize that was they were just constantly
auditions and screen tests. Sure,
okay.
For sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very confusing. There was another example of that later in the section where it was very, very similar to that. The general is about their invading, and he says, "Hold up, men. Did anyone see where those arrows are coming from?" "Hell yes, General. They are coming from every direction. There must be 1,000 Indians out there somewhere." Someone yelled. So they don't even bother. You get to the end of this, you're not sure who's talking, as is Charles E. Harris's standard technique. But then it just turns out it's someone, and it is never clarified who is doing this long-winded yelling.
Grandpa's got a game. I posted this one on Patreon. This is his tendency to him and they and then lose track of it. But I'll read it out here because it's a classic of it. The captain had told Collins on his way out not to repeat the conversation they had with Chad and Dale, but he was worried Collins would tell the general they were actually here to investigate the general.
Oh, my God.
I don't think...
It is...
Diagram that sentence. I dare you. It's
5
impossible.
people, multiple theys, and just like looping back on itself. Would tell the general they were actually here to investigate the general.
Yeah. Well, it continues. I got one more here.
Sure.
When Collins left the office, the general called for 2 sentries. He sent one to the brig and the other for the captain. The sentry he sent to the brig was to bring shackles for the captain. He placed the shackles behind his desk and the sentry behind the door.
Wow.
Who did
yes.
What? He was just going off to get them. Who placed...
Time, well, time ceases to play by the same rules in the Charles E. Harris-verse. So who's to say that as he goes off to get 2 people for shackles and 1 for the captain, and then places them behind the desk, or maybe the general does, that we're not skipping ahead in time, or maybe Collins is able to truck through time himself, sans truck.
Is that his hand wave away for all of our questions? Were he here? It's like, right. Hey, you guys forget, man. We're back in time. Doesn't work the same way.
Yeah. Tesseract. That's what happened. Unstuck in time. There we go.
Done.
I did like that that when Collins got there, he rode in at a full gallop and didn't stop until he reached the general's office. So I was imagining, the Arnold riding the horse in True Lies into the elevator. Collins is just galloping all throughout the fort as people are leaping out of his way. There's a janitor pushing a mop who has to jump out of the way at the last second.
I had that same one, and then I thought, well, he kind of clarifies it in the next sentence.
Oh,
so given that I have so much, but yes, I resented that equally as much as you did.
And then so what Collins says after he's been scouting is he says, General, he shouted, which is, there we go, right up front.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty good stage directions. I picked up their trail just outside the fort where they met up with about 100 or more Indians, which is sort of surprised we didn't notice that, sir, that 100 or more Indians were gathered just outside the fort. Our guys really, really suck at watching the fort. Because I guess the Indians just sort of whisked these guys away. But if they had been here to attack us, wow, we would have been absolutely dead.
Yeah, and please note, the Wenian numbers are stacking up. 150, he 50%? Sends out his 50 best men. There are no odd numbers here, no crooked numbers, as they say in baseball.
Right. And then Collins says, the captain doesn't know it. This is also for us as well, since we didn't know this. But I stayed outside his window last night and heard them discuss you and some kind of newsprint the captain's wife brought back from Philadelphia. So he's doing the Shakespearean character eavesdropping, with his hand cupped to his ear, like peeking over the window, like Kilroy. Which maybe his services would be better utilized picking up on the hundreds of Indians gathered outside of the fort that they're currently at war with. But I guess peering over a windowsill is a good thing as well.
Also a good storytelling technique to just explain that after the fact, not while it's happening, to set up drama. Like what they weren't aware of was that outside. Like, nah, it's just. Right. Well, I'll cover that later.
Sure. At any given time, someone could be overhearing anyone else's conversation and then bringing it up later. Why not?
A thing that delighted me, yes, it delighted me that Sergeant Zero Hera stayed pretty consistent through his last mentions here, except for a moment where he's referred to in like a proper noun, the Sergeant O'Hara.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no, sorry, the O'Hara. So he's Zero Hera everywhere, and then later it says, when the captain was carted off Collins and the O'Hara entered the general's office.
Maybe that's just the thing he's been trying to get going, when he's playing pickup basketball with the guys.
Yeah, maybe he lived in California for a while and lived near the 101 and the 5, so he named himself that.
Right. Speaking of other characters, we get a brand new character, which is we're about probably 35 pages from the end of the story at this point in time. But
right, you talking Kidwell?
Baby, am I? Yes. So
I marveled at this. I marveled that we're getting one now.
It's incredible. We get him, and we get another one a few pages later. But we get Lieutenant Kidwell. In case you're wondering, Lieutenant Kidwell has not been mentioned, but it's sort of surprising me. It turns out that he is the third in command. After the formation left in pursuit of Chad and Dale, the general summoned his third in command, a Lieutenant Kidwell. Not the Lieutenant Kidwell. He hasn't earned that yet.
Hasn't earned it yet.
Kidwell was a green, raw man who had only seen duty in Washington as a desk clerk to a congressman. He had seen no action, but was game and eager to have a shot at an enemy. He had never seen the first sign of the battlefield. So naturally, this is the guy that the general makes his third in command. He's
baffling.
Yeah, he's normally the type of guy that he would be like, all you've been doing is pushing a pencil in Washington, but congratulations. You got the promotion. You're the third in command of this thing. He's green. He's raw. He's never seen the first sign of a battlefield. So he's eager to see what he would screw up. But as a spoiler alert, we will never hear anything about him ever again in the rest of the book.
But I love that the general's explanation for why he sends him out, like he's green and raw, and you think there's going to be something like he's doing a double fool, like they're going to recognize him as a fool, and therefore...
Sure.
No, there's none of that. When he assigns him, he says, I realize you are new to this kind of duty, but I trust you know you have been trained for just this sort of thing. Wait, I trust you know you've been trained for it.
I was unaware I had been trained, sir.
Now that you mention it.
Yes.
And then I love this. Be advised, war with the Indian can be the most nerve-wracking and dirty. That's the thing I'm most concerned about, sir. How nerve-wracking and dirty will it be?
Will the war be? Again,
I've heard really good things about it, but now you're starting to taint my view of war with the Indian.
Sure, there's a soldier that's surveying the utter carnage at Gettysburg. There's 700,000 dead soldiers. What he's most ticked off is that Grant never told him it was going to be nerve-wracking and dirty.
Right.
This war that they've gotten themselves into. Yeah, it's a hell of a pep talk he delivers. He goes on to say, they do not fight conventionally as our prior enemies. They are notorious and formidable opponents. They fight to win. They are relentless and will fight to the death to protect what they have. Once we encounter the enemy, it will be a fight to the death, theirs or ours. So he's really he's not quite Patton here.
I also thought huge slam on their former opponents. Unlike everyone else we fought, these guys are trying to win.
Yeah,
they'll actually kill you.
Yes. Maybe they were.
Who the hell were they fighting?
The Cleveland Browns, maybe that was who they were up against. Yeah, it's maybe that's why we don't hear anything about Lieutenant Kidwell, is because he just got the hell out of there and back to his desk in Washington.
Well, he gives them the rules of engagement, which are quite striking, and I assume, extra constitutional and outside of his orders. We will attack the village, showing no mercy. Take no prisoners. Do not worry about women and children. They must be taken as the enemy and killed also. The response is not, sir, this is outside. No, it's, I understand, sir. I will not let you down. Well, look, new guy. Hey, horrendous war crime. I'm in. Don't even say another word.
Well,
I'm good.
He probably knows that he's been trained for just that sort of thing.
Now that he's been made aware of the fact that he was trained for this.
Right. So Kidwell is on board with the war crimes, and the urgent telegram is still sitting there on the desk, not to be read at any given time. But they're going to take their 50 guys right out to the Sioux village and and massacre everybody because he's fired up, I guess, about Chat and Dale. They thumbed their nose at him and they killed a bad guy. That's about where we are at this point in time.
Yes. And then another stunning Charles E. Harris touch. So that conversation we just talked about, we must kill women and children, and the other guy going, sounds good.
Yep.
The very next paragraph, no break, is the trail led directly to Green River, and the sergeant held the column at the edge of town. We're in a new scene. We're not anywhere near what was just happening.
Oh, no, it gets nuts.
It is stunning. And did you notice in this, I think this has already been brought up, The Office already once, and I thought of this. In The Office, they would just drive to New York from wherever the hell they were supposed to be.
Sure.
Even though they were clearly in a parking lot in Culver City in California.
Right.
They'd always go, I'm going to just drive to New York, and then I'm going to go to Boston after. There was no mention made of what are the distances between everything?
Yes.
And in this one, he just starts all these 3 locations. It's sort of a triangle. They all take just under an hour.
Oh, wow.
So it's just wherever he needs to be, he gets someone to that location very quickly. The
Council of Wynn weighed in on just under an hour. They allowed it with trepidation because the hour is nice and even, but it was just under, and they can't abide that. But
that's right. But yeah, so we go back to Christina Troy. I just wanted to point that out, that the travel seems remarkably easy. And locations are just sort of jammed together like Lego blocks or something.
Right. But yeah, so we meet up with the captain's wife Christina, and we got a couple of interesting sentence enders back to back that to me they reminded me of "said the robot pimp disdainfully" as just unconventional caps to a sentence. the sergeant, I guess, Sergeant Zero Hera is talking to Christina. So she says, Sergeant, I am Christina Troy, the captain's wife. Is the captain going to be in town today? And he replies, I'm afraid the captain is going to be detained for quite some time, miss, he said, as he and Collins removed their hats. And so they there's no reason that they are doing that, or there's no reason that it's even mentioned. But then you get they explain to her he's being accused of treason. She says, treason? That's impossible. There must be some mistake. He is the most loyal officer I've ever known, she said, grasping her chest. So you get two very, I guess, attempts at adding color to a thing, but these guys are just doffing their hats, and she's grasping her chest as they're having this conversation. And I felt like more sentences in this book would have been improved had that happened either during or after sentences.
I have just a general note on this meeting. Like, what in the name of hell is happening here? The physicality of it is so bizarre.
There's clearly something missing.
Yeah, she goes into there's no paragraph break, and then she's in the telegraph office, and she's like posting the telegraph. Did you follow that? I didn't follow that.
I read it 5 different times, and I just eventually concluded that it had... he didn't put in the little like star that indicates, the passage of time or shift to another scene. If it was a movie, it could just cut to her going into the office. But I think that's sort of what he did. Like the guy, his buddy out, back was, marveling about how sexy the woman on the Ace of Hearts was on their nudie deck. So Charles E. Harris was like, oh, and then she sent the telegram.
Yeah, and then they're outside talking. They have that confrontation. Hats are doffed. Chests are clutched. Then she sends the telegraph, and then the last line was finished just as Collins and the sergeant walked into the telegraph office. And I just wanted they all go like, hey, what just happened? Were we just all talking out on the street? Did you get beamed in here? What happened?
You guys have become unstuck in time. This is the author. This is just going to be happening from here on out.
Right. Wait, what's an author? Don't worry about it.
Right. It's the late 16th or maybe early 17th century. So authors are not something anyone's heard of.
I could be off by 50 years or so with presidents. Don't bother with it. We'll get to that in a moment.
So yeah, they send yet another telegram to the War Department, who has to be just extremely curious about why their telegram is, one, how people got the number for it. Because you'd have to imagine they'd want to keep that secret. They're going to be like, now we're getting pizza delivery menus sent to this thing. But then they say that she says, I think she says this to Collins. She says, your general is the one who should be locked up. Before this day is over, I can assure you my husband will be released and the general will be on the carpet with Washington. And so this is, I assume... this is another thing that I'm going to claim is not a phrase, and that we're going to hear for the rest of time. That it's very much a phrase. But on the carpet with Washington struck me as not real.
And I think the phrase is called on the carpet, right?
Great.
Yeah. By the way, when you're casting the movie, who do you have as McNally? I'll give you a sample of his dialogue, and then if you haven't chosen yet,
I've got a name ready, but let me hear the dialogue.
I'll do my interpretation. Please don't, your actor can take it in whatever direction he or she wants.
Yep.
Hot damn, McNally shouted as he took the message and got up from his chair. Excuse me, but I have to find the marshal pronto. This is really something. So Who do you have?
I added a more like a refined Jim Broadbent character. That was
okay.
I was sort of like the old guy who's sort of seen everything, but he's on his way out, but he's certainly willing to help one more time. But no, I guess you're right. I guess McNally is Steve Buscemi as a grizzled prospector.
No, all right, there we go. Oh, McNally, we had met him before, right? He was one of the 2 telegram guys.
Yes, there was they did the room thing where they just subbed out the character of one of them for the other one.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. Maybe people are coming in to send the War Department so many telegrams that they needed to double up on staffing.
Yeah, I got thinking of your, how did you get this number thing? I just had that bizarre thing, or early in the morning getting messages like from an unknown number. I need some money from you today. and a winky thing. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then like, how you doing, baby? And stuff like that. It's like, all right, who is this?
Sure. It works on somebody, I suppose.
And then it evidently, and then they gave an address and said, Tiffany sent me, right? And I was like, look, I'm blocking right now, but you have the wrong, stop pursuing this. And it's very disconcerting. So I imagine that's what the War Department is doing. Who is Christina Troy?
Right.
Stop this.
She keeps doing, like, where are these messages being printed out? It had to have been very costly to send these things. It was probably like, long distance times 5,000 to get these things. And they're all of a sudden getting these spam telegrams.
Oh, I think McNally gave her a giant winky and an okay sign and said, "I'll take I got this covered, Christina."
Right. So she says, they say, I wouldn't be so hasty to Collins. You don't know the contents of that last message. And then Collins replies, I don't really care, miss. We have a village to attack, and I, for one, can't wait. So Collins is essentially just twirling his mustache at the idea of doing a genocide here. He's, just in the face of facts saying, I do not care. So he's come a long way, this character.
Although, he's going to have to get through Kidwell to do it. Kidwell standing over the bodies of children that he's just gassed.
Smoking a cigarette. I'm not raw and green any longer. No desk in the world could have prepared you for this.
Oh, Kidwell.
And then they go to see the captain. They rent a buggy, and the marshal escorts them to visit the fort. And someone
which is
says
just
to them,
under an hour away. Just in case.
Yes, exactly. Someone said to them, the captain's in the brig, and I guess the corporal over there is in charge. His name is Carringer. He answered. Then I suggest you have Corporal Carringer come talk with me and Mrs. Troy, the marshal ordered. And Carringer is no Kidwell, in my opinion. We don't get too much descriptions of him, whether he's raw and or green. Maybe he's just jealous that Kidwell got the third in command promotion over him, because he, too, is never mentioned before or after this occurrence.
I marveled at that.
It was amazing.
It was a laugh out loud because of Kidwell just like a page before, and then getting this guy.
If this was a real book that Harris had kickstarted, you would have to assume that was a $2,000 level backer who just got the right to have his name in the book. But clearly that was not the case.
Shout out to Carringer and Kidwell.
Right.
They teamed up. They put their $1,000 was pooled.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, fine. I'll allow it because this is, of course, the only pledge to my Kickstarter.
Yes. The marshal, who becomes an ally of Christina and the Troy family, I think, as a whole. He's a real philosopher. I understand your position, Mrs. Troy, and I think you may be right. But I have to find out what is right and what isn't.
Yes.
I mean, that's true. That's how we all seek the truth. We think we have we probably have a confirmation bias, or we have whatever our cultural biases, but we need to find out. So,
sure.
Yeah. I think you're right, but I need to find out if I'm right.
What is
about
right
being
and what is
right.
Patented. Yeah, that's his, I think
my epistemology needs a little updating.
When we finish this book, I think that will be the thing that is the takeaway here, is that the use of the same word in sentences multiple times with slightly different meanings, or 5 times with all the same meaning will be the Harris trademark.
Yes. Also, Christina Troy, very she's a great female character. I think we can all agree.
Sure,
but she sometimes gets confused about whether she's on land or sea, because she says, "We'll rent a buggy at the Coral." Not the corral. So. Yes, I'm picking on typos again.
Sure.
Go to hell, everyone.
It's funny though. But I liked this statement. We have had many defenses of the Native Americans. We are again and again asked to consider who might be the real savage. But when the captain is released from the brig and is sort of explaining what has happened, he says he might go a little too far, I feel like, in his defense here, because he says Patch Wilson and John Starnes started the battle by killing one of the chief's braves and the first sergeant at the same time. Both patrols were looking for Wilson when this happened. Wilson just took advantage of the situation. The Indians wound up capturing Wilson and placed him on the torture pole, which only added fuel to the general's anger. And then it sort of ends. And, I think that, you might... What happened after they placed him on the torture pole? Because that's, some momentous event in our mind, and Wilson would probably, from wherever he is at this point, he'd probably agree with that. But no, they just placed him upon the torture pole. They placed John Coffey upon the electric chair in the Green Mile, and, yada, yada, yada.
He should have made it even more passive, and then someone was placed on a torture pole, yes. But let's not quibble about this.
It's like, is that like the 1920s fad of flagpole sitting? He was just placed on top of the flagpole, and the paper came out and wrote a story about him after 20 hours.
Then he put like 32 marshmallows in his mouth while he was on the torture pole. Is that what happened?
Right. And once they deplaced him, everyone had a good laugh. But so it just seemed to be burying the lead, and the lead, of course, is the Wang severing and burning. So
yes.
And then so we get this, and I think we discussed this on the previous episode, but they do open up the urgent telegram, and this is the context of it. General Rollins, stop, make no attempt, all caps, these are very hard to read, make no attempt to vindicate Forbes' death, stop, information received creates doubt of your ability, stop, relinquish your command to Captain Troy, stop, place yourself on inactive role till further notice, stop, James A. Garfield, President of the United States. And so I think we sussed this out, but we later learn at the end of the book that this is all happening in 1831, yes. Which Elizabeth, one of our readers, pointed out was the year James A. Garfield was born.
Yes, this is stunning.
So like she also pointed out that the telegraph was pretty much invented in 1838, so that's a funny little thing as well. And what makes it even better in my mind is that the actual president in 1831 was noted Indian fan Andrew Jackson. So even more so, historically anachronistic that the instead of it being like sounds good, like take care of him, AJ might have been the actual response from the actual president at this point in time.
I also note, give all of those things, of course, huge and important, but he should have put in the telegram back, like, you're lucky I was strolling past the War Office at this time. I was having a sandwich and I heard the beep, 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 beep. There was no one in there. So right. I pulled it off and immediately fired off this response.
Yes.
You're
reams
damn
of
lucky.
paper on the ground of the War Department. They're just rolling in nonstop. Got an ad for karate lessons or something like.
So then that causes the marshal and their people to go to the Scranton paper office that is the fort, right?
They're going to the Sioux Nation. This is happening at the fort.
Oh, this is happening at the fort.
They're going to the third location,
which
people fast travel to. And the way they embark upon that is they say, Marshal, would you be willing to accompany me to overtake the general before we wind up in a war with the entire Sioux Nation? I will be happy to, Captain, but we have to hurry. They have a few hours head start on us. We'll catch them, Marshal. Oh, well then, fine. Nothing to fear. Okay. Sounds good.
I didn't tell you, though, that Kidwell's on the job. Does that change your opinion?
He sits down stricken. My God.
We're doomed.
He's so raw. His greenness.
This young nation in 1880, we're doomed.
But so this is, I just realized this too, is that, Charles E. Harris is the most prominent thing about him is that he's a proud resident of Nashville, Tennessee, minutes from the Hermitage, Andrew Jackson's house. Like there's no way that he couldn't have known. I mean, right? Like
I've when I go to Nashville, do you think that I'm going to visit?
No, but we've had people who we work with who have gone to visit that as a historical site, something to do, and so you get the sense that he's probably a big deal there. I don't know. It's like I went to school in Charlottesville, and everyone we were always too hungover to go visit Monticello, but we always we knew it was there.
My sons live in Nashville, and when I used to get their credit card bills, I didn't get a lot of bills from the Hermitage.
That'd be a wise move on a dive bar, like when you call yourself the Office or something.
Yeah, or you just go to the Hermitage and say, look, we're just going to do a 3-way trade here, buddy. You're going to take a little piece of it.
The guy at the Hermitage is like, well, how far is this? I only do 3-way trades with places that are a little less than an hour away from me.
Just under an hour.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
I'll assume all your debt.
That was chapter 17. I don't have anything more.
Nope, that's how it ends. And we can, I think, move right on to chapter 18, which... starts with I think we're back in the fort. We're back in the Sioux village, and we're going to get some strong Dale presence because the lookouts of the Sioux have already spotted the general's horses along with Kidwell, we assume, and the lookouts come back, report this, and the Sioux are a proud nation. They have, obviously fought many wars before. They've got a chief. They've got a medicine man. They've got Blue Duck. They've got all these great warriors. So they decided to let Dale handle all the strategy here. Dale, who's been back in 1831, 8, or 1880 for 4 or 5 days.
What you want to do is you get all your fuzzies and your tarps. What about our bungees? Yes, grab them as long as... what color are they? This is amazing. And the plan is... It's astonishing. Did you...
Yeah.
I tried to track it. I just gave up on it.
Sure.
I forgot that actually fuzzies are involved in it. I was kidding, and then I realized, I have that as an actual note.
A central part. It's like a 80s Sierra adventure game where you pick up a fuzzy somewhere and then you keep it in your inventory the whole time, and then at the end it turns out you need to use it.
Chekhov's fuzzy.
Right. Dale says, tell the chief to send the women, children, and old ones across the river. So far, all that people have gone off the river across the river for is to get busy. So I hope that's not his intent here. I hope that Chad and Lightfeather are not currently across the river. But he also says, leave the dogs and horses here. Place half the braves on this side of the hill, 50%, just below the skyline. Take the other half to the hill across the valley and put them just below the skyline. Chad and I will go with you to the end of the valley in front of the hill leading to the village. And your mental picture of this, when there's been nothing described in this village except for a fire that they're grilling wangs on, is a hill across the valley, skyline.
Well, get below the skyline?
Hill leading to the village?
To get below the skyline means there's a hill, so just go to the other side of the hill, right?
Right, yes.
Below the skyline. Well, where are you standing? If I'm on the hill, I can't get... If you're on the top of the hill, I can't get below the skyline.
He means out of sight, I suppose. But yeah, it sort of is like, if you're filming this is how it will be. They'll just sort of pop up from behind the back of the hill. Like that's how it's a 2-dimensional image in his mind.
Right, and this is keep in mind this whole thing is being translated. So he's doing all this, and obviously the word fuzzy translates quite easily. There were no questions about that. White flag, cavalry, truce flag, all of those things translate instantly.
Sure.
To the Sioux Nation.
Those are all names of warriors that we never really got to meet. Those are White Flag and Lit Fuzzy were two of the screw ups in the tribe.
But he says when the soldiers reach the bottom of the hill, Chatter, I will fire a fuzzy in there to signal the braves to fire a volley of arrows on an angle to land directly in front and to the sides of the patrol at the same time. So that obviously the chief is used to that. Is like, sure, sounds good.
Right.
Fire the volley of arrows at an angle.
Yeah.
As opposed to
not without a vector of movement. Fire them into some sort of like one-dimensional space.
Right. This would scare the troops and the horses, bringing them to an abrupt halt. Another volley would certainly get their attention. So the first volley will scare them, but the second will get their attention.
Right.
So they tend to get pretty bored and distracted immediately after being scared in battle.
Right. The entire plan unfortunately hinges on them, the necessity of the general being a gigantic hot-headed dumbass.
Right.
Because so what essentially these guys are their position always has been, we're peaceful, we've done nothing wrong. So the U.S. Army is approaching their doorstep, and Dale's solution is to just launch a ton of projectiles of war at them in what is certainly an act of war.
Yes. And then says to them, after he describes this thing, the chief, what was his reaction to this? Like, you know what? I fought a lot of battles with a white man. I'll handle it. Thanks, guys from the East. No, the chief did not think about the next move. Chief, do you want to think about it?
Right, yeah.
This is your whole life. These are your people.
Yeah, no, the chief seems like you said, these are all long monologues that are then long monologue translated to him. And there's multiple times where he just seems remarkably chill with it. There's another time later where they tell someone the whole plan, and the chief's response is, I quote verbatim, "Sounds good."
I believe that's a what's his name? Oh, not Brian Regan. Maybe it's Brian Regan. Like that's his a super long email. Reads none of it and goes, "Sounds good." It's the chief.
But I guess just Dale was the books that he read in the back of the truck prepared him for this sort of thing. This was shockingly not my dumb sentence of the week, but we got this delight. Chad picked up an arrow and taped a fuzzy to its end. So that's they all agree with it. They say the plan was set. If all went well, the surprise the general was about to receive would give Chad and Dale the chance to present the chief to the general on an equal basis. Just the chief and the general face to face. This would give the general a chance to tell the chief he was a savage to his face. And I just, as I was reading, I wondered if our heroes might have any sort of retort to that plan. We'll get to it, but just as I just was curious whether they might, if the general were to tell the chief he was a savage to his face. I'm looking forward to whatever they might have cooked up.
I don't think they've thought about it at all. It'd probably be the first time it occurred to either of them.
Yeah.
I've got a good after the fact stage direction again.
Okay.
Don't worry about those two bastards, General. I assume this is Collins. This is just from my notes. I'll take them out the first thing. I wonder if they can use the new type defense to stop a bullet, Collins said with a hearty laugh. Oh, okay. That was all a big laugh line.
Right, yes. just
Don't worry about those two bastards, General. I'll take them out the first thing. I wonder if...
Oh, wait, sorry. Don't worry about those two bastards. Oh, Charles.
And Hardy? Is it Hardy? Or is that okay? Hearty?
Yes, no, it's spelled. Sorry,
okay,
it's
just
hearty
sure.
laugh.
Yeah, he was eating the east of the Rockies version of Carl's Jr. as he laughed. That was the.
We grant him the homonyms. I guess we've had a few of those.
they had forgotten to take the jokers out of the erotic deck, and boy, were they. Wow! And Charles E. Harris had to investigate. Then we get to They shoot the arrows, and then that's when someone yelled from earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then they decide that the arrows have made them reconsider everything, and so Chad and Dale approach, and the general says, "The two of you seem to have chosen the wrong side of the issue. Am I correct?"
Yes.
Upon which Dale responds for 2 uninterrupted pages.
Oh my God, it's amazing. Before we get to because that's incredible, let me just give this platonic ideal of his confusing writing here in a very brief sentence. When the arrows stopped falling, the chief came into view, riding slowly between Chad and Dale, who was holding a flag of truce. Let's just condense it down to its most confusing, and there you go.
Yeah, a very simple image reduced to now you're not sure who's holding the flag. It could just as easily be him or the other guy, since it
could be
work
the
either
chief,
way.
it could be the general, it could be Chad and Dale, it could be...
Right, they could be stretching it between the two of them, like
yes.
Like one of those things that a football team runs through before a game starts.
Yes. But then we get to boy, do we get a We get an earful from this guy. He's not happy.
Okay, I did not take down a single note from it, but I just noted that he responds for 2 uninterrupted pages.
I have I've called a dumb sentence of the week, so we'll save that for later. And here's another. I think this is in the middle of it, so this is just a confusing thing. We were brought into this situation by pure accident and have seen with our own eyes the entire development from its beginning. You have been informed of each incident that has happened and have decided to remove the Indian instead of the problem. With this in mind, Washington has been notified as to your approach to the impending situation.
Oh, my God.
I just wrote, ooh, strong word. Wait, what? Are you?
Yeah, that entire sentence.
Are you lecturing me, or I don't know what's happening right now?
Yeah, there is a every part of those 2 sentences took place at a different point in time.
Yeah,
like
and
the
you just
are...
imagine him like narrowing his eyes and like maybe pointing a strong finger sort of outstretched and forward in his saddle, and the other guy going, "I don't know what you're doing. Are you mad at me, or what? What are you saying?"
If you've ever like gone to a country where you don't speak a word of the language, and someone has had an animated conversation with you, or is worried you're going to hurt yourself or something, you're like, you can understand the tone, I guess. So yeah, if he's pointing his finger and wagging it at the general's like, I understand he's not happy with me, but I honestly can't tell what the hell he is saying.
It's like a moment I saw a person yelling at a person from a Chinese buffet who, I guess in certain Chinese culture, smiling, you do that when you're embarrassed or when it's, and so a guy was going like, I had to wait like for an hour to get my, General Tso's chicken or whatever. And the guy was smiling and he's like, "Don't you smile at me, you son of a bitch."
God.
I was like, I think he's actually like, he's very embarrassed. Right?
Yes.
The guy's like, "Stay out of this, man. This guy's laughing at me." I'm like, no. It was really horrendous.
Grinning at the, I'm offering you free meals for a year. I am so embarrassed. Like,
yes. Here's another one I pulled out of the speech. And as you guessed, I don't think you quoted this yet. Stop me if I have. You call them savage, and you have come here to take the lives of every man, woman, boy, or child. Is this not savagery? If not,
my God.
What do you call it? This situation is like a marriage. I was like, whoa. Puts my marriage in a different light, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I was all ready for a, the "are we not the real savages" type of thing, because that's essentially Harris's thesis. And then the situation is like a marriage.
Yeah,
it takes give and take for it to work. You have to want it to work, or it can't.
Well, imagine, so the chief is standing by listening to this. Like, this guy's, it looks like he's defending us, but then the translator, who Dancing Leaf or whatever, he's saying things like, "I am certain you are acting on your own accord in your plans to attack these innocent people." Washington would never grant. The language is so weak and so confusing.
Yeah,
that there's no way this is making any impact with anyone, even the people he's trying to defend.
Right, and this is where the thing we led with, you have to want an understanding before you're able to have understand segment came from. So that is just as confusing. I did like this. I liked the. This was another sort of Anakin Skywalker-y kind of quote. The general showed up here to wipe them out, to kill everybody. "The rank of general was earned, sir, and I'm sure by your accomplishments and your ability to make decisions. But somewhere along the line, you've lost your perspective of the truth." It's like, that's an interesting way to put the guy who was here to kill the women and children and old people and not take it. He's really lost his perspective of the truth here.
Yeah, let's get that perspective back there, buddy. Come on, you've got it in you. Killing these people.
If only Hitler had been able to regain his perspective of the truth,
Yeah, and then we get another. So this is a back and forth, again, without attribution. So the general took the urgent dispatch rather than looked over the captain and said, "This is not over, Captain. You and these two will be in irons very soon. I have more clout than you think. In all fairness to your position, sir, no one is against you." So this is a new paragraph.
Yes.
But there's no attribution. This situation has gotten out of hand, blah, blah, blah. This comes from higher authority than you or I. I apologize for your embarrassment and your inconvenience. The captain answered. Son of a...
Right.
Put it up front, you idiot.
Yes. There are so many people who have that point of view who could be saying that.
This is baffling. And the fact that... So this was a fairly long read for us. The fact that I had to scan it 4 times began to be incredibly irritating.
But also in that sentence, it was confusing. But the captain says, in all fairness to your position, sir, the position is genocide. No one here is against you.
Well,
I mean,
there's like
show
children
of
standing
hands?
over there, like a little kid raises his hand, like, I don't know,
It does seem like there's a few
I'll hear
flaws.
what you have to say, but
Yeah, I'm not you as a person. However, your policies, I do have to say, I am against.
Kidwell has a knife to my throat right at this moment. I think
Right. The knife is also green. So yeah, it's just very confusing, very clumsily stated. I mean, but also we're hearing these points for the dozenth time. So
yeah, and so then we get the lecture, and then the marshal rides in, right? So he brings the message that the general should have read, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. The urgent telegram.
Yeah. So my notes get a little sparse here, but anyway, this was like coming back home. Marshal, my name is Chad, and this is my partner Dale. We want to thank you for your part in correcting this matter, and to also thank you for the Indians. It was like coming home.
Yeah, it's like someone shows up at your house with come the holidays with a platter of Christmas cookies. Thank you for the Christmas cookies.
Yes.
Are you thanking me for all the Christmas cookies on the table there? Like, thank you for the Indians.
Yeah.
As they've been sort of summarily dismissed, Collins has thoughts of pulling his pistol and shooting the chief, Chad and Dale, but thought better of it when he saw the number of Indians on each hill. The Indians have revealed themselves from below the skyline.
I assume 150 and 50?
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Collins thinks, my time will come. I'll see those two again. So I sort of dog-eared that page, and how will this pay off as they go back in time? It does not pay off, of course. We never hear of Collins again. And then I thought, was this the guy that they saw in the Wyoming truck stop, or the rodeo guy who looked like pissed off Tom Selleck had been? But no, that was another guy named Patch, which also
does not
pay off. So I was like, because if you use Back to the Future rules, then of course there'd be a Collins who then would be in the future would be chagrined and different to these two guys. If you were just at all interested in tying up any sort of loose threads or coming to resolution. But nope, sorry, we'll have to wait for the sequel.
That seems like such an unforced error. Like, why do that one? Because obviously, as we were reading fanfic and everything, that's the obvious thing. Is I think there was a number of them about that guy.
Right.
Like, wow, he looks like that guy we met back at that truck stop.
Yes.
There's no reason to do that if you're not going to bring that person back.
And so that's sort of what he does with the women later. But yep, nope, no more Collins. Ah, well.
I have another. This is my obsession. They like, who are they? Who's doing what to whom, when, where, why. Wild Eyes was the last one to come across the river with several small children. He knew what they wanted and smiled when he reached shore. So this is a quiz for you and for everyone. Who are they in this context? And I have choices for you. Chad and Dale, the children, Wild Eyes and the children? What's the correct answer? I'll read it again. Wild Eyes was the last one to come across the river with several small children. He knew what they wanted and smiled when he reached shore.
The children, they want soft buffalo hides.
That's a good guess. The they in this context is Light Feather and Chad, who are not mentioned in the sentence. I had to dig it out like a rotten tooth. I had to go in and reread and read again, and that's yeah.
Well, so what they want then He's coming from across the river. He knows what they want.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what it is too.
He's smiling at their horniness.
Right.
Wow.
But the children too are getting a little taste of that.
Right. Yeah. Wild Eyes is giving them a little elbow, and then they look at him blankly, and he gives them, "You'll understand when you're older."
Yes.
But yeah, so I think they got one more moment together, and Lightfeather says, "Come, Fast Cat. Blue Dawn and Slim Fox have prepared a special place for our last time together. I have many plans for you to take as memory until we are together again. You will not soon forget tonight." So yeah, Grandpa's all riled up again. I wish he had expounded upon, because she seems to be landed on pretty thick, but she does not elaborate on these plans that he's never going to forget.
Grandpa, this what year did we think this was written?
2002, 2001.
Okay, so that was the height of Chinese Viagra. So Grandpa was
right. Yes, man,
Grandpa was
got a good batch this time.
He was clicking yes on those emails.
I mean, you have to imagine some sort of, I don't know, sex chair, sex swing, like something going on over there, like
at Charles E. Harris's house?
Across the river.
Oh, okay. It's like, please don't make me imagine Grandpa's sex chair. I barely got over Eric Roberts' sex chair, and now this.
Of course. But yeah, so that's I think that's how that chapter ends, with them venturing across the river for a night that they'll never forget.
Yep, and I have nothing more until the epic wrap-up of this. The final
Damn it,
chapter.
boy, it's the final chapter.
Holy moly. We wondered how he would wrap it up. He does not, and yet still there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sort of begins with, they've been told, so reiterated, that they're going to be together again once they go back in time, and that they have to leave tonight. But chapter starts with Dale began to feel sadness by having to leave this boy and his little friends who thought so much of him and Chad. And I just, he's become really attached to Slim Fox, but I just wanted to know, like, how's your real son doing, Dale? How's that guy that's been mentioned once up to this point and has a significant role going forward? We learned about him, I think, 80% of the way through the book.
Well, he becomes pretty much the central figure of the book at the end here.
Right.
You neglected, though, this opens with someone bilocating, which is pretty neat trick. The chief and the captain had smoked the peace pipe, and the captain and the marshal had left the village for the fort. So he's in two. The chief and the captain smoked the peace pipe. The captain and the marshal left the village for the fort.
Wow. Unstuck.
Yep.
That's how.
Time travel.
A little less than an hour.
Yep. Captain can be in two places at once.
These Christina and the boys are just hanging out at the fort, I suppose. Maybe with the what was his name? The second guy that wasn't Kidwell.
It's not Garrity. Oh, I had it on the tip of my tongue. I'm
damn it,
Carringer.
Yeah.
I'm still enamored with McNally. I'm a McNally guy all the way.
So Chad gets back from across the river, and he says, I have some news that's truly unbelievable.
Yes.
What's that, partner? You and Lightfeather going to have a papoose? Dale asked with a laugh. So just real, I don't know, sensitive, cool.
Yeah. Hey, big shooter? What's happening there? Like, we're traveling through time, and yes, I impregnated a Native American. This is weird and serious.
Right. Exactly. I might be my own great-grandfather at this point in time.
Stop snapping me with that towel.
But then Chad explains what has happened, and he's seen, they've both seen an amazing thing across the river. He says that there's these sort of pictographs, glyphs, cave drawings on the sex cave they went to, and he says it was a picture of a wolf covering an area about 4 square feet. That way, the water dripped from the ceiling, eased over its body, and the light from the entrance to the cave. It took on the look as if it were moving. It was painted white, and its eyes were a soft light green. Dale, it was captivating. I couldn't stop staring at it.
That's what he did on the last night of his life with what has been described as the most beautiful woman who has or ever will live.
Yes, it has been. Who is just as is incredibly into him, is just like turned on by his mere presence, and has just told him, "You're never going to forget tonight." He sees a cave drawing of a wolf. You have to imagine it's just a poorly rendition version of the famous Wolf Moon T-shirt, and then he just can't stop staring at it.
Where are you, Chad? Where are you tonight? Be with me. Like, man, this wolf. Oh my God.
Wow. Yes. It's they didn't even have airbrushing, but it looks like the side of a guy's sweet 70s van. Man.
Oh, look at the texturing on his fur over there.
But lest you fear, Lightfeather is pretty into it too. The wolf, and she says that there magic things have been happening with these cage drawings ever since before she was born. She says once you enter the cave, strange magic things may happen. Of course, I had other things on my mind and began to pet and play with Lightfeather.
Yes.
So we've got Grandpa's slang coming out of petting, which always even when you'd read like old books or hear about that thing, that always made me uncomfortable.
That is a terrible. I don't care if it's its era it's from a different time, it's a different slang. It is awful.
Yes.
That was also one of those chances I took immediately after being upbraided by Bridget not to read her anymore. I did read the pet and play. She's like, stop it.
Nice. Yeah, I think I would rather read about yiffing than petting.
Yes.
So, but then she says the strangest thing of all happened, and the wolf started talking to them. Says that reiterates, I think, sort of what the vision of God, Great Spirit, the eagle said. It said that Dancing Leaf would be forever with you and Marie. She will marry your son and make him a son to be proud of, and give you many grandchildren. So this is just a vision into the world of Dale's son. We get more. It says, from all indications, you and I are leaving at midnight, and I'm taking the love of my life with me. And the son you thought would never amount to anything is going to wake up from his dream world and become someone to be proud of. Hell, he may even find a job. So, again, we haven't heard a peep about this son the entire book, and it turns out he's someone I wish most of the book had been around. He's this loser of a son of a trucker who doesn't have a job, and that Dale, who's, I guess he's had an interesting life, a karate master, Marine, Vietnam vet, but he thought he would never amount to anything. We need more information about him.
Oh, exactly. And I also thought about as Charles distributed this book amongst his family, did he have 3 sons? And then all 3 of them are going, what? Wait, who's this guy?
Right. Yes, exactly. These, which of you is going to be redeemed?
I'm working at Rapid Oil Change, but I've got plans.
Right.
I'm dating a girl. She's nice.
Right. I'm happy. I spend my time volunteering. Sure, the job isn't high paying, but volunteer work's emotionally fulfilling.
I also thought, and I know he's been mentioned, right? The son. This is not the first mention.
He was tossed off, I think, last chapter or last episode. I think he said something about Marie and your boy, or something. I mean, it was as tossed off as could possibly be.
So this just struck me as, boy, this is a ninth inning change here. Like this becomes the linchpin.
Yes.
Like the boy that you always thought would, like, when did he think that? We didn't get any indication of this guy at all.
Yes. Right. Have the conversation. The as soon as you set in the truck, how is your son doing? I don't think he's ever going to, still doesn't have a job. I don't think he's ever going to amount to anything, Chad. We move on.
Yes.
That is established. So we have a hard picture of how old his son is, but it turns out that his son is an adult who's of pretty much of Marian age, which is another surprising thing to me.
Yeah, but then the next sentence, I was stunned by this. It reminded me of the Apostle Paul on the road to Damascus. I have never thought much about God or religion, but I know these people believe in a higher power, and I have seen results. I promise I will never again criticize anyone for their belief. I just may start believing myself. Wait, but what's the religion? Like wolf painting religion? What are you grounding it in?
Well, yeah, and what more does he need to just may start believing myself? God appeared. God talked to him. They went through time, and God explained why. So he's you're never going to criticize anyone else for their beliefs. Like, you know what the truth is now.
Yeah.
Like, you're in the highest position to be like, actually, sorry, Jehovah's Witnesses, like, this is actually what the real deal is. I hate to criticize, but I have personally seen this.
Yes, we have we have a new revelation. It supersedes everything that came before. I'm sorry, I know this is going to be difficult, but here it is.
I also liked how Chad sort of told his whole story. He's seen God again. The wolf has talked to him. He's told Dale that his son's life is going to improve. He's going to be forever with his love. And his sort of summation. Awesome, huh? Like that. That was when my childhood friend Josh got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game on Nintendo, and told me about that and told me to come over to his house. My parents got it for me. It wasn't even my birthday. Awesome, huh?
Yeah, saw God. New plan for the universe.
Yeah, he just throws up the horns. Sweet, rock on.
But now we get to the parting of Lightfeather and Chad.
Oh my God, their time is near to leave. To reemphasize for the dozenth time.
Yes, and he makes this speech, and this one it's stuck in my mind. It's beautiful lady, you are etched in my memory for life. You have made me the most happy, proud, and satisfied human being alive. How could you be sorry for missing out on something we have the rest of our lives to catch up on? Remember, you will always be with me. So just a long speech to the
believe it or not,
a cheesy language, but something about it struck a chord with me, and I remembered. I'm just going to pull it out here. I think this was like a '70s song.
The speech was a '70s song.
Yeah, it was like the lyrics to a '70s song. So I pulled it. I looked for it, and I pulled it up, and I have it. I have it here. So let me just. I'll play a little bit of it. You'll get the flavor of it. It's very, very cheesy '70s.
Beautiful lady, you are etched in my memory for life. You have made me the most happy, proud, and satisfied human being alive. How could you be sorry for missing out on something we have the rest of our lives to catch up on?
Huh?
Wow, yeah.
So I mean, he's
was
a fan.
very cheesy. It was very cheesy.
Yeah, he was obviously a fan of that style of music. So it was a nice shout out. Anyway.
Oh yeah, okay. So I got ahead of myself. I thought that the '70s guy would have trucked through time himself, read the book, gone back to record it.
Wait a minute. Oh my God, you just blew my mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's no rush. I don't know if that's going to show up in Ready Player 2, but yeah, it was cheesy as hell.
Do you think that the wolf sang it to that '70s singer, and then he went back in time and wrote it down as a song?
It was a pretty smooth groove. So I think that if that guitar lick had started kicked in, that might have got people in the '70s petting and playing and all of that.
Pet, our favorite word.
Yeah, and so he the wolf had given him the '70s song, and he gets choked up as he's approaching all these people. He gives Slim Fox a glossy print of Chad of himself and Dale standing in front of their truck. So he's completely ignoring the butterfly effect.
Just
at this point in
crushing
time.
butterflies again. Yes, he was flipping coins around before to McNally and all
coins,
of this.
Yeah. So yeah, they've decided to make their exit. Chad can't really talk because he's too choked up. And once they finally sit their farewells, they begin walking towards the top of the hill. And this is where I started to be like, all right, what's going to happen? How are they going to get out of here? What's going to be the dramatic reveal? But they walked towards the top of the hill and began to hear the sounds of traffic, so they picked up the pace. When they reached the top, they saw their truck sitting in the same spot they had left it, motor still running. They looked back to wave at their friends, but they were gone. They seemed to have disappeared. And can you guess Dale's response when they have transcended time, metaphysics, all known rules of place and being.
Holy moly! This has changed my whole outlook. I'm a new person. I don't know what that new person is yet because I'm shaken to my very core. I don't know who I am, what my purpose is, but I must.
Damn it, boy! They're gone. Dale said as they ran for the truck. So that's them moving ahead in time by 250 years.
And I love that they quickly. This is not like wading into these waters that we were so familiar with from the first chapters and just putting a toe in. This is like full baptism. This is the Nestea plunge for those who remember that. They walked around the truck and checked the tires and the load. I'm driving, partner, Chad said. You check the Qualcomm and see if it's working and check for messages. I'll check out the CB. So they're just immediately back in. We are truck guys.
Maybe get a knick-knack or two out of the cooler. I don't know. But yeah, like back on the Qualcomm, they're not missing a beat. Like they've just, and like, if we want to quibble, they just sort of walked through time there. There was no trucking involved.
Yeah, that's true. That's the truck was not an issue.
I hate to spring these on you two in a row, but Dale has a good idea.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to put it back on you.
Oh, fine.
Dale has a question for Chad. And I want you to guess his response. I could eat the heck out of a hamburger and French fries. What about you, partner? Dale asked. What do you think Chad replies to that?
Well, Dale, it's been a trying week, and I know that we haven't really talked about what we're eating, so we probably are pretty famished, but I've reconsidered a lot of things. Number one,
you took the words right out of my mouth, Chad said, as he eased the truck onto the freeway. Chad wasn't even through the gears when they saw a truck stop just ahead.
Amazing. That's priority number one, having just had the experience of a lifetime and trying to figure out how your new love is going to fit into this world that you probably no longer feel welcome in.
Right.
Oh, man. Fantastic. But yeah, the first thing Dale does is Chad sort of eases into the booth. There are no modern-day Patches, no modern-day Collinses. Do not worry. Dale goes to call Miss Marie, and he comes back and reports about all that. He says, I felt like a fool after I talked to Marie. I woke her up, and she was surprised I called. She said I just talked to her last night. I didn't try to explain. I just told her how much I loved her. I told her to call your mom and tell her everything was okay. On a happy note, Chad, she says, my son found himself a new lady friend and also a new job. She sounded pretty upscale about it. She said she met the girl and she was pretty. She was dark-skinned and had the appearance of an Indian. Go figure, right, partner? So he called Marie. It was the standard time travel trope. What are you talking about? You just talked to me yesterday. And he felt like a fool, but then Marie drops two gigantic bombs about their son, that he has got a new job, a new lady friend that she has since met. So it's like she has a lot of information to tell him. So there should be no fool or remorse in this at all. Like the world has major news to report.
Well, I think the biggest thing should have been, why are you sounding so upscale? And then Miss Marie could go, what did you say? I don't know. You just sound, I don't know. You sound good. You sound upscale. Like, oh God, you're not using that word like that in the world, are you?
Right.
Oh God, I'm so embarrassed if you are. I'm indifferent to that. Oh.
Right. Well, you must understand being upscale before you can get the upscale. And she said, Dale, I mean, we know how these guys feel. We know that these guys are, know who the real savages are. But she says she was dark-skinned and had the appearance of an Indian. No indication that Miss Marie is happy about that. There could have been her like cupping her hand to the phone and Dale. She was dark-skinned and had the appearance of an Indian. Dale's like, so.
Right. Why are you bringing that up at this day and age?
Yeah, exactly. That's my headcanon. Is Miss Marie is deeply racist. So.
So they get down to the burgers and coffee, and it says, They each ordered hamburgers and fries with coffee when the waitress finally came with menus. So, wait, they needed the menus to make this incredible order?
Right. They think that they both had on their mind upon coming back through time hamburgers and fries.
Which they know are at every Flying J or whatever he takes care to mention that.
Yes. But because this is the one thing that we said nothing pays off, this is the one thing that does, and we sort of spoiled it with fanfic. But when the waitress finally came with menus, Chad turned the menu over and saw a story on the back. 1831, Fort Bragg, Wyoming Territory, General Nathan
Rollins. Did we know this till it?
I do not think we did.
Okay,
I think it was
that
General...
made me laugh out loud, and I couldn't remember whether I should be laughing at it or not.
No, I think it was amazing. Commander of Fort Bragg was placed in irons and relieved of command after fabricating. This is all in all caps, by the way. It's very hard to
on the
read.
menu. Yes.
After fabricating stories of his feats against hostile Indians, it seems he was trying to make a name for himself at the expense of small Indian tribes that were peaceful. And Chad's response, or Dale's response, "Damn it, farm boy, we did change history." This was at a moment we're going to read emails later, but Harris told us we were told in the beginning that menus told stories about horrific tragedies,
right,
not stories about horrific tragedies being averted. I demand a new menu, which is a very good point.
Yeah, it's an awful story, no matter how you slice this one.
Right.
But then, so here was a curious sentence. It sure looks that way, partner, but don't tell the waitress. She might take our hamburger and fries back and try to find some buffalo burgers. Here she comes now. Mm-hmm. I was just like, all right, let's see how this plays out. Hey, we're the guys in the story on the back of this menu. We're time travelers. Oh, I see. Let me get you some buffalo burgers.
Right.
What?
Right.
Why would she try to get buffalo burgers?
It's been a long haul, you guys. You should really probably lay off the trucker speed and I don't know, rest for about 20 hours if you're making ridiculous claims like that. But yeah, eat these normal hamburgers that you've already ordered. No reason to swap them out. You need some food in your stomach.
She casually strolls over to the sheriff who's at the counter having a coffee and a donut. These guys, keep an eye on them. Serve them buffalo burgers? No, that never came to my mind at all.
Are you feeling okay, Sheriff? That is very unlike you to suggest that. Sheriff Collins?
And then I assume you wrote down their self-summation, their own description.
Oh, my God. Well, yes, of course I did. So
okay, go ahead.
They decide that one of them is going to get fuel in Evanston, Wyoming, and take a shower at the Flying J. And before the sentence, Dale says, "There's something I can't figure out," which, granted, is accurate and justified. Chad says, "What's that?" Dale says, "The time. We left the village close at midnight, and when we got to the truck, it was 8:15. We lost 8 hours and 15 minutes somewhere. Where do you think that time went?" That's what he's hung up on. That of all the things that have happened, and he's just curious about why they came back to the present 8 hours and 15 minutes later than when they actually did it. It was just stood out to me. But the summation, I thought, I'll go ahead and burn it. It was my dumb sentence of the week.
Oh, okay.
Possibly of the book.
Of course.
But Chad's response to that, as Dale is hung up on a missing 8 hours and 15 minutes. "We may have lost 8 hours and 15 minutes, partner, but we gained 7 days of mystery, drama, excitement, compassion, horror, and romance, along with many, many other words that could never explain the trip we took, trucking through time." You have to imagine they both turned to the camera immediately after that, too, as they delivered essentially like the book blurb from the back of the book.
Boy, oh boy, Quint. We sure did witness some Jaws here today.
Luke, we defeated an empire. You kissed your sister. We didn't give the Wookiee a medal, but we sure did fight some Star Wars.
Oh, man. He's that had to be one that his family, just like, cringe to the point where they had to leave the room.
R.C. Koba him. Yep.
Yeah, like.
But yeah, it's so that's all one sentence I read. It sounded like there were pauses, but no, he pretty much gives the his query letter to an editor, his elevator pitch for the book in the final end of the book, and it would be a fitting end. But we do have a post credit sequence, which if you're hoping there's just a little more nonsense, we've certainly got some for you.
This is a coda that I wish he had never. I mean, it could have been just a sentence, right? Obviously,
sure.
It could have just been like, he looked up and or maybe I would have liked if she had given the and she will explain in a moment. It's quite obvious who she is. If she had given the honk your horn signal, the passing below the big horn thing, and then she's like, and then he looks over and sees, oh my God, it's her.
Right. But she's like, pressing a ham against the window of her car on the way to spring break or something.
Yes. But no, we get a very bloated coda on this of him meeting the love of his life. And man, does this go on.
It's amazing.
Cow.
Yeah. So they see a car swerve off the road, and they decide they're going to get off and help the driver take care of the damage. And she says, I'm fine, she said, rolling down the window. I'm just a little embarrassed. I received a phone call that was quite disturbing and lost control of my car. In true Harris style, we do not learn the contents of that phone call until much, much later. We learned that it was her fiancé calling off their wedding.
Right,
and like you said, if they could have just she could have just rolled down the window and it was her, and Leo's top topples over at the end of Inception, blah blah blah. Like we move on, end of book. But it keeps going. Chad became speechless. She looked exactly like Lightfeather, facial features, smile, and that beautiful black hair. Chad tried to play it cool and said, if you are not hurt, we'll be glad to pull the car out of this ditch. So he's very cool, as he says that. Right. He's pretty much Steve McQueen or I don't know, Ryan Gosling. He's just remaining very cool. And here we go with Grandpa No again. He got a brand new spam email package that he opened it up. Chad opened the door and she turned sideways to step out. She was wearing a short skirt split at the side.
Yes, and Chad stood back, which is one word, at least in my, and stared. I'm so sorry to stare, miss, but you remind me of someone I knew that was very close. Before she could respond, Dale had a chain. Before she could respond, Dale had a chain. Yeah. And hooked it to the bumper of the car and to the DOT bumper of the trailer.
Yeah. Dale is, Chad is like, could the towing wait 5 minutes as I reintroduce myself to my soulmate?
But yeah, just advice for anyone out there. If this happens, like two guys in a truck get out and someone hooks a chain to the DOT bumper of his trailer, you just get the hell out of there, get your cell phone, lie in a ditch, scream, fire off a fuzzy, do whatever you can, but get out of that situation.
Yeah, very few meet cutes involve DOT bumpers of your trailer. Yes. However, she does not behave as your standard incredibly attractive woman in a short skirt were in the situation. Dale suggests, it's a couple of hours to Evanston, Chad. Why don't you drive her if she has no objections? And then her immediate response, I would be very grateful if you would. I am quite shaken. She's also very insane, apparently, to accept this ridiculous offer of a trucker who's going to drive her to somewhere on the West Coast. It didn't even seem that I guess her car went into a ditch, so maybe it's not drivable. But anyway,
it's not drivable because it was. I passed this over. It was marred in the dirt, which is. I mean, I guess if you do crash your car and it gets stuck, I guess it gets marred a little bit, but that's. I don't think that's the word that he was looking for.
Sure, not at all.
Marred in the dirt.
No. So she accepts the offer, and Dale says, "Take your time to reacquaint yourself. I'll meet you in Evanston. JL jumped into the truck, thinking of the new woman in his son's life. So he's doing some action thinking there.
A very mercurial mind on him. This bizarre thing just happens. This happens, and he jumps into the truck the second after saying, like, "Yeah, I'll meet you in Evanston." But my son, I wonder what. Yeah. Very tough to do. Right. This is a great a line from. This is Chad. Okay. This was Lightfeather for sure. He was so excited he could hardly stop himself from reaching for her.
Whoa.
Now listen to the smoothness of this moron. My name is Chad, miss. My partner is Dale. We are headed to San Francisco and then back to Atlanta. Are you from Atlanta? I noticed the tags on your car. And then she realizes, I have made a huge mistake.
I wonder if that's still him playing it cool. Yeah. My partner is Dale, blurting. And then, are you from Atlanta? Is like I feel like we've had things like that in movies before.
He's just guessing. Yeah, exactly.
But then she replies as as I read this, try to imagine someone saying this and you not immediately realizing they're clearly lying. My name is Lois, yes. Lois Weathers. I am a consultant for a large company in Atlanta.
I wrote, that's right, fake name, and for heaven's sake, don't give the name of your company.
Yeah,
Lois.
Not even pretending. She looks and sees like the Superman sticker on the back of their truck. Yes, Lois. She sees a storm approaching. Lois Weathers. I am a consultant for a large company in Atlanta, the city you just mentioned.
For ditch diggers. Stuck in the ditch, so yeah.
the vaguest thing. But this is we go on. This is a amazing exchange. I don't know. I wrote down the whole thing because it is something that only Charles E. Harris could have written. Lois says, "The call I received was from my fiancé. We were to be married when I returned from my trip, but he has called off the wedding. He said he has found someone else and doesn't want me anymore. That's why I wound up in the ditch." So, all right. Fun, bad, but Chad's response. Dumb Indian is all I have to say, Miss Weathers. Anyone that would put you down for someone else would have to be blind or crazy. Her response? Thank you for saying that. It's terribly sweet of you. Please, call me Lois. And how did you know he was Indian? Chad's response. To be honest, I had no idea he was Indian. I only knew you are the most beautiful lady I've had the pleasure of seeing you with my own eyes. Please do not take my words as a danger sign. Her response, Chad, I feel no threat being with you. I actually feel very comfortable and safe. And I just added, because as stated earlier, I am quite insane.
That is, the entire exchange is amazing. I thought at the point where, so he says, dumb Indian is all I have to say. And then she says, thank you for saying that. Yes. And I figured at this point she was like tightening the grip on that thing that shatters your windows if you get trapped underwater. Like,
sure,
maybe I could get this in his eye if I,
Right, yeah.
That's terribly sweet of you to say. And she's like grasping, she's, fumbling for the handle of the door, of course.
She's flashing back to her friend who is like, you sure you don't want to bring this mace? I've got an extra one. You should really carry it with you. I don't need it. What's the worst that could happen?
I'm driving on a freeway. Nothing, it's like if I get pulled over, if something happens, truckers, they're the knights of the road. They'll save me.
Right. They're not going to all of a sudden start spouting racial slurs and then saying, do not take my dangerous words as a danger sign.
Yes. But I wondered who this woman goes to lunch with after this exchange.
Oh, my God.
Chad, she exclaimed, exclamation point there. One of the ladies I had lunch with in Denver yesterday. You were just there. Did you have lunch with ladies in Denver?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah. All right. Well, one of the ladies I had lunch with in Denver yesterday said she was a clairvoyant. She read my palm and told me I would soon meet the man of my dreams and I would completely forget my fiancé. Lois Weathers, if that is your name, who the hell are you going to lunch with?
Yeah, so there's
You're
two
as batty
possible...
as these idiots are.
Yeah, there's two possible explanations. One, she went to lunch with a friend who she did not know was a clairvoyant, or two, she went to lunch with a complete stranger who, upon Lois hearing that she was a clairvoyant, she agreed to let a stranger read her palm at lunch.
And then upon being told that she would leave her fiance, she, I guess, said, "Hey, do you want to split a dessert?" Instead of going, "What the hell is going on here?"
Right, you've ruined my day. Like, one thing's for sure that we've talked a lot about Jim Dalen in this book. In this series,
yes.
But this clairvoyant would most likely know who was more popular in Denver, Kim Basinger or Kelly LeBrock, to reference Ghost House one more time. Yes. Needed to wedge that in there. She would not need to do a radio poll.
Oh, and then we get to the meat of it. The reason that Charles E. Harris wrote the book. I assume it is.
Of course.
And at this point, Grandpa, end this thing now. Stop it. I think I need to find out for myself if you are really fast, Chad. Please stop the car, she said, sending chills and excitement throughout his entire being.
Uh-huh.
Chad stopped at the next exit ramp and parked off the shoulder.
Parking.
I wonder if he saw Alicia and the Mister there. They pulled off the road at the M5 or whatever. Before he could take his foot off the brake, she took his head into her hands and kissed him gently on the lips, bringing memories of the kisses he had received from his beautiful princess he left at the village. She released him, then held him close, rubbing her soft breast against his chest. Chad thought he would explode any second.
Yeah, speaking of the Mister.
We're almost done with the book, Grandpa. You could have ended this.
Yeah, well, disregarding how the physics of that movement might work across, the emergency brake and the shifter and stuff, but good Lord, she's just immediately. Clearly she's an emotional wreck, having had her wedding called off this quickly and surviving a car accident, but all of a sudden she's rubbing her soft breast against his chest.
This is a quick turnaround from going to Chili's, meeting a weird lady who said something really rude and sort of like, what? Like, no, look, don't bring your friend around anymore. And then going off the road. And yeah, she's adjusting well. You have to say that.
She's been so buttoned up working for a large consulting firm in Atlanta that, the first opportunity she gets to let her hair down and go wild, she's going to take it. Good consultant gone bad.
Mr. Weathers didn't raise no fools, boy or girl.
He's Chad. No word on whether he does explode.
Thank God.
But it is a rental car, we are told, so it does not matter.
Charles was
staining.
doing the public reading to his family. At the end of it, he did stop. He put a finger on the page. He stopped and he winked at everyone after the about to explode and went quietly like, he did. Anyway, let me finish this up.
Right. And then he says, pre, post, making out, petting, exploding, whatever. He says, Lois, do you have to fly back to Atlanta? I don't want to think we could ever be apart again. This is just really romantic dialogue. I feel as though we have been together forever. No, fast cat. I can turn this car in Evanston and go any mode of transportation I so desire. So that's sort of their tomorrow is another day type of thing.
I was thinking about this. It's so funny. The travel things are like, wait, so he's in the truck. He's driving her to Evanston where she's turning the car in and flying to Atlanta.
Yes.
That's amazing. You're exactly right. It's the foggy runway, and
right.
You're getting on that plane.
Right. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe I should have gotten the damage waiver. I always disregard that because I have a credit card that covers it. But, I just know that's going to be a pretty big pain to get the credit card to eventually cough up for the damage I caused. So that's a regret. But that's neither here nor there. Let me give you a tissue.
Louis? I'm afraid to say I just exploded. Before we become friends, I'm going to go back to that. There is a restroom, I assume, back there.
Damn it, boy, those were my pants you were wearing.
That would make it a different movie.
But we do the trademark Harris transfer to a scene one sense or another without any indication that we are doing that, and they are all of a sudden meeting up with Dale in a truck stop restaurant, presumably the Flying J, possibly in Wyoming. And he says, Chad, my friend, he said as he reached for Lois's hand and took his friend's hand also. I only have... So he's holding both of their hands. She, again, must be certain she's about to be hacked to pieces and thrown in a ditch. I only have this to say, and it comes from the bottom of my heart. I knew the moment I laid eyes on this lady, she was the gift from the Sioux. I knew the other gift is the new love in my son's life. I am so humble at this present time, I could absolutely cry with happiness for you and also for myself. So yeah, that's sort of his his farewell on the runway in Casablanca. But he's been reduced to tears by humbleness, which is an interesting situation.
But it ends better though, because he says then, so he's talking to her, I guess, to Lois.
Sure.
But then says, I hope you understand, partner. Okay, new paragraph. I think I get what's going on. Chad leaned over and kissed Lois gently and said, I very much understand, partner. As Lois is like, oh, God, don't kiss me while you're talking to your partner.
He's staring directly into her eyes.
It's so creepy. You always do it. Plus, you take my hand and then you talk to your partner. It's gross and weird. I'm not going to Evanston, damn it.
Right, yes.
Yeah, so there it is. That's the end of the book.
Well, he says, I very much understand, partner, and so does Lightfeather. The end. Yeah. They understand. That's it. We've reached an understanding. We all understand each other. We have trucked through time.
Right then.
The end.
The waitress walks up with buffalo burgers. You son of a...
Yeah. One bite, they lower it. Oh, man. Well, yeah, that's it. We trucked through time.
Holy cow.
It ended 100% with him just going out to the poker game, checking in on, he's going to, the Tennessee Volunteers are losing at halftime, but he's going to call his bookie and he's got a good feeling about the second half line. So he's going to phone that in. But, man, all right. Damn it, boy.
Yeah. So wrap up thoughts. What do you think?
I think it was, it had its charms. It definitely had its charms. I think we touched on a lot of those there. It was also a hard one to read. It was repetitive.
Man, was it hard?
Physically hard to read. I mean, our sections, I don't think had many words in them each time, but they took me a while, and it was harder to track, I think, because of the repetitiveness. And, I just wish there had been more trucking through time. I wish they had, I think I've said it before, I wish they had gone back and forth a bit more.
Yeah, and he, I wish, although he certainly reached, far, he swung for the fences, sort of. I wish he would have done more of it.
Yeah.
I wish, robots and things. I wanted his take on other things. He narrowed the world. Once he did the time travel thing, the world narrowed up pretty tight.
Sure. Yeah,
I wanted more.
Yeah, and the trucking stuff was so delightful in the beginning. The truck stop minutia, the route planning, the trucker lore. It was hard to just abandon that after the first 50 pages and just stay in this in the Western world.
Yeah, write what you know, they say. So he wrote about time travel and history, which he knew nothing about. The trucking took a distant third.
But so the other question is, I mean, we are told by the Great Spirit that they went back through time. They had something to accomplish, and that's it's a trope. You go back to make something happen. Once you've done your piece, you can travel back. Your work here is done. But we in the world that they came from, our world, they knew Sitting Bull. At some point in time, they determine that Sitting Bull is Slim Fox, and they determine that they need to protect him, but they haven't changed time. You know what I'm saying? They do not go back in time. Marty McFly falls in love with his mother, therefore he has to get her to fall in love with his dad because he's altered history. They have already saved Slim Fox.
Yeah, I think I brought that up earlier, that they don't. Yeah, nothing changes. Because he existed already.
He did. And so they don't know whether he had been beaten by Patch Wilson, miraculously survived, this is the thing that lets everyone know he's like the chosen one, or this hardens him into becoming a great warrior. They just immediately save him, and then at that point in time, they've already altered history, and then they just need to alter it further. It's just not the way that this type of thing works.
No, and why didn't he just say, you will become a great leader? I mean, just leave all of that vague. Like,
right.
We did a good work here. The Sioux, and it was his, again, unforced error being too specific about who characters were and things like that. And especially missing James A. Garfield by 50 years of his presidency. How did that happen?
That is stunning. I was emailing with someone, and I thought that like it could have been, he had to use a bootleg World Book back in the day, or he kept trying to sneak into the University of Tennessee library, and they kept being like, the Horny Grandpa's back. We need security to the U.S. history section. But it boggles the mind.
So I couldn't come up with any theories, so I assume you have none either. Maybe one of our listeners will have a theory as to why. I mean, maybe, as you mentioned, the AJ thing, Andrew Jackson thing might be a part of it. Like, I just don't want to bring him into it. Maybe he was angry at him and was like, I'll just write a alternate timeline of history or something.
Sure, yeah. I suppose, it's not, we're not to believe that it was the James A. Garfield we know. By traveling back in time, they could have already changed, that election, and another guy got elected. Or maybe he just, as it said on the back of the book, he collected data wrong.
Yes,
that could be that's probably the most likely situation.
He was doing a Tarantino alternate history timeline or something. His own. I don't know.
Right? Yeah. I think I'd put it. Somewhere in the middle of the pack in terms of readability. It's certainly better than Bob Honey. Certainly better than 64 Squares. I probably would put Tech War above it.
Yeah, I would still put Tech War above it. I don't think anything will ever replace Bob Honey at the bottom. I'd be shocked. If we do, we're making a huge mistake.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, well, the gauntlet's cast. I don't know. We do have a few more dumb sentences. I don't think we need to play the song again, but we can read some of those.
Yes, let's go.
This one is from, a lot of these come from our Patreon supporters. Like you said before, we did some fun stuff on Patreon while I was out of town. Patreon.com/372pages. Get every episode early and get other stuff. You'll be the first to find out whatever our next book is. So it's worth chipping in. Go do that. But this one is from Tom H., who I believe is a Patreon supporter. He said, you might say I've already loved you in my mind. And he says, the fact that line worked on a young lady Chad had met about 5 minutes prior may be the most fanciful element in this entire story about two 21st century truck drivers going back in time to karate kick their way through the Old West. This next one is from Tim. Yes, these people, this is part of the classic line, yes, these people are different from the white man, but not indifferent unless you make them indifferent.
Okay,
this one is from Heather. Who not the Heather that tricked you in fanfic. This is the Heather who reads this with her young son Timmy. Timmy was not there this time, but Heather sent in, we want to thank you for your part in correcting this matter and to also thank you for the Indians. Thanks so much for those Indians. I just love them. They're so tasty. What a lovely surprise. Heather comes up in another email from another reader, so we will come back to her. Chris wrote, the captain knew nothing he could say in his defense would help because Collins had squealed and the general had not yet read the urgent message. And he said squealed is a funny word for someone who isn't a mobster or a tween to be thinking.
Yeah, I noted that one too.
Yeah, we just didn't have time to talk on that. Yeah, but I mean, I guess Collins is very much a squealer. This one's from David. This is from the 70s pop song, Beautiful Lady, You Are Etched in My Memory for Life. He said he's been trying that as a pickup line for 3 days, but all it's gotten me are several restraining orders and an Indian rug burn. This is one that just as a like we covered earlier with the tone being attached to the end of the lengthy paragraph. Sadly, Dancing Leaf repeated.
Oh wow!
That's a sentence that ended a paragraph of her talking.
Holy cow!
This one's from Carson. Once we encounter the enemy, it will be a fight to the death, theirs or ours. He just wondered, what as opposed to all the wars that involve the enemies calmly playing rock, paper, scissors to decide the victor? Like, we know that's how it works.
Well, we also learned they shoot arrows at an angle. That's the new plan.
Harris, the final page of the book. I can turn this car in Evanston and go any mode of transportation I so desire, as long as I can be with you. Natural sounding as go any mode of transportation I so desire is the only thing that would make it better is a list of those modes of transportation. Such as a plane or a train or a boat or a bus or a... Okay, we get it. Con, I think I need to find out for myself if you really are fast, Chad. That's the thing that leads to him possibly exploding in the back of their car.
After her soft breast brushed against his.
Has been rubbed against his chest. And George wrote in, hell, he may even find a job. Out of context, unremarkable. In context, a magnificently monstrous absurdity. This woman wanted to hook up with you, but she'll settle for your son, who's some kind of loser, and her being in his life will magically fix him. We don't know, man. That's just how truck and food time works. Tesseract.
Yes, she was. Look, the important thing is she was kind of dark-skinned,
Honey, why? I'm just trying to enjoy my regular burger and hope it doesn't get returned for a buffalo one, please. Yes. That's our dumb sentences. We've also got several emails that we'd like to, people's final thoughts on the book.
Hang on, I have a dumb sentence.
Oh, right, duh.
Yeah. I stacked on top of course, the crowning achievement of Harris, which you heard at the top of the show. This is at the end. Dale walked back to the car as Chad was helping her in and suggested. And that's period.
Oh, my God.
Dale walked back to the car as Chad was helping her in and suggested.
So Dale is suggesting something over his shoulder as Chad is helping her into the car?
Right. But that's all. We don't know what it is he suggested. That's the end of the sentence.
That means he's helping her into the car and suggesting, too. That's a very distinct possibility. Good Lord. Well, I'm glad we're not going to have to read another sentence that ends like that. They're giving us whiplash.
Yeah.
Let's do emails.
All right.
Oh boy, did we get some emails. We had people wanted to just share final thoughts with the book, where it weighs in our canon.
Universal praise, I assume.
Yes, I think as a whole, people enjoyed reading this book. I think they enjoyed reading to it, listening to it. I think as a whole, it's probably in the upper half of books for people. Less throwing things across the room in this book, and more gentle bemusement at the Horny Grandpa.
Yes.
So this first one is from Tom H. He sends in a link to dammitboybrand.com.
What?
They have they are evidently apparel, and this has it has an explanation. Damn it boy is a common saying in the South. Here at Damn It Boy Brand, we decided to create a logo and print it on shirts because we know how much people love saying this in East Tennessee. And the shirt is, you can go to dammitboybrand.com. It is, it appears to be MS Paint, and it does not appear to have been updated for 6 years, but it is still up there. I'm not sure if you can still buy these shirts. If you do buy one, wear it to our live event. That would be very exciting. But there is a picture of the kid who started it. It says, the Damn It Boy crew decided to take a trip to Panama City Beach this past week. While we were there, we visited Shuckham's Oyster Bar, close to Pier Park, where customers can write, draw on dollar bills, and hang them anywhere in the restaurant they want. We had to make a Damn It Boy dollar, of course, so if you take a picture with the Damn It Boy dollar and send it to us, you will receive a free T-shirt. So if you're near Panama City and Shuckham's, if you go in there, find the Damn It Boy dollar, send it to us, send it to them, good things will happen.
Do you buy their story that it's a common Southern phrase?
But it says Eastern Tennessee. I don't know.
Do you think that they were fans of the book or knew Charles or something?
Looking at this kid, it is not. He seems to be a college kid who had the idea to make a shirt. Had just enough talent to do the design at MS Paint and get a very bad website up. But I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it's real. I don't know.
A side note, what do you think of those places that have that dollar bill crap going on? Maybe I tipped my hand there.
I've done it once in somewhere in the Keys, the No Name Pub. I think it was. It's a thing. Sure, why not?
I don't like all that gross money hanging over my head. I'll just say. Anyway, go ahead.
Wow. All right. Learn something new every day.
I am many faceted. God.
It does seem like it is definitely a long con.
Yeah, I've heard stories. I was in one where the guy said, yes, one time a guy made a run through and grabbed all the dollars that he could before he was tased on the floor. And
right. That seems not worth it for probably the $30, $35 you'd be able to nab before someone noticed what you were doing.
Yeah. It's not like being in one of those money shooting booths where you can maybe get away with $800 if you're very lucky.
Maybe land at 20 or something.
Yeah.
Here's an email from Harris. This is sort of summing up their thoughts on the series, just where this relates into our canon. Of all the books you've done, this is the one I'm having the hardest time figuring out. Bob Honey was pretentiousness run amok. R.F. Argon was a dorky teenager trying to write fantasy. Even 64 Squares, bizarre as it is, had something special to it. But what is Trucking Through Time? It wasn't about Harris's love of trucking. It wasn't about his appreciation of Native American lore. It wasn't about his knowledge of history. President Garfield could tell you that. It certainly wasn't that he had an interesting story to tell. The plot's nearly as repetitive and devoid of action as 64 Squares. None of the characters had personalities or quirks, or a sense of joy in creating them. Did someone catch him writing Native American erotica, or parentheses, or dick-chopping torture porn, or both combined, and he had to cover it up with an entire book? I guess that's it until the next one. But ask yourself until then, who are the real savages? This next email is from Heather. I don't think this is the same Heather.
Oh, come on. How many Heathers do we have out there?
This is maybe the fanfic Heather. I, like you and most everyone reading along, have noticed that as Charles Harris is finishing the book, there are more and more problems with plot holes and unintelligible language. Christina Toy talks to her children who appear out of nowhere. Collins never leaves the meeting with Captain Troy and Chadale. The telegraph operator changes names in the space of a page, and Mrs. Troy magically teleports to the telegraph office. So, yeah, that's not just us.
Okay, great.
But for me, the cherry on top of the sundae is Dale's ne'er-do-well son's fancy new girlfriend. She is described as having darker skin and hair like an Indian, a reincarnated Dancing Leaf. But Dancing Leaf was white. Her family was murdered by white men, the real savages, she puts in parentheses, and she was rescued and raised by the Sioux. Harris totally forgot. I think that's his problem. He's forgotten what he's written earlier in the book, and as the book becomes more complex with stuff happening at the fort, Green River, and the Sioux village, there we go, he just forgets what's come before. But Lord help him, Harris just keeps on trucking.
Wow, that's a great point that I don't think either you or I caught.
Didn't pick up on it until I read her email.
I forgot. Of course she was, but they seem so interchangeable. They were like Chadale too, so that it was like, I don't know, they're just whatever. But that's right. Her origin story is she's white as snow.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. Always good to hear. So, and then this next email is from Con, who says he's curious to hear more from Heather, the mother of Billy, who reads this story to her son at the dinner table. I'd like to know more about what it's like to share of this book and indeed the podcast with the whole family. So Heather said that her son was at Philly's camp. I guess we will, if she chooses to weigh in on what it's like to share this podcast. I'm not sure how much of the podcast. I don't assume they did not read the Mister together. But let us know what it's like to
please say no
to share this with everybody around the table. Our listeners are dying to know.
Wait, do we get an age for the son?
Maybe he was 13.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, sure. Fine. I mean, I guess.
Yeah. Every kid is different. My kids.
I
would take one of my sons to a Lord of the Rings when he was maybe a little too young, and people were like, "That's pretty scary." I'm like, "Yeah, you don't know this son. The other son would get nowhere near it."
Right.
I know my kids.
I guess it's just when the body parts start getting tossed in the fire that it starts to be a little more.
Well, you can read ahead and skip. So
sure, true.
But you can't. I don't know. You
can't
fast
read
forward
to listen
through
to
the
us. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in fact, if you're listening now, you probably didn't expect to hear about Wang severing now. So hopefully that surprised you.
Didn't hear about what? Wang severing?
The Wang severing.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Then it gets roasted, and I assume they ate it afterwards. That's been my
right. The Wang severing you're talking about.
Yes, the severed Wang.
Okay.
And so now we have an email from David, who, in true style, you cannot read this book without informing other people that you're reading it. So he says, "This summer I've been reading Infinite Jest, and frankly, I find it easier to keep track of Wallace's characters and pages of dialogue than it is to remember which Sue is in love with Chad and which is in love with Dale. I am not sure which one is Fast Bear, if that's even one of their names, yet I can name 5 nicknames of a character that's dead before even jest even begins. Props to everyone who finishes Trucking Through Time, Tennessee's version of Finnegan Wake.
Okay. This was a problem for mine, so I'm glad, a problem of mine. I'm glad that it was shared with at least one person. There are probably people who can track, can speak Charles E. Harris easily and have no problem. I had a really tough time. And part of it, to be honest, is that we're not reading it, at least I'm not, very contiguously. I pick it up. And then I go, wait, which one's big fat cat, or So
yeah, I mean,
it gets a little tougher.
That's part of it, but in a more straightforward book like Ready Player One, there was not, you weren't confused about which character was humping the lubed up sex doll. You knew, even if you put it down for a week, that was something that you're able to follow that thread.
Thank you for putting that in so that the people who avoided severed wang could get that with no problem in the clear. That one's in the clear. Okay, lubed up. All right, good, great.
Right, yes. Enjoy, Billy. But David also points out, there's lots of facts here, but the Census Bureau was not formed until 1902, so there's no way Rollins could have gotten his information from them since they were not around even before these people were born. So there's the tracking down the census is the same anachronistic as President Garfield and the telegram.
President Garfield hanging around the War Department in 1831.
Yes, and then being dead for 22 more years before the Census Bureau was formed, maybe in his honor. We get this one from Chris, who's a Patreon supporter. He said he just wanted to reach out regarding Trucking Through Time. I suggested this book months ago on Facebook, so I'm probably responsible for you guys being exposed to it. Sorry. I'm just delighted that other people now know it exists. I came across the book at a rest stop somewhere in the Midwest about 15 years ago. I was on a long, uncomfortable Greyhound bus trip. Are there any other kind? And Trucking Through Time made the whole ordeal worth it. I laughed all the way home. And then he says, thanks for everything you do. I hope Trucking Through Time has not been too rough. Sincerely, Chris from Cleveland.
I assume he was going to Evanston to fly to Atlanta. What were you?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
He works at a large consulting firm in Cleveland. But yeah, that's who to blame, people. Chris from Cleveland.
Chris Weathers, perhaps, from Cleveland.
And I'm guessing if he had like looked back after starting to read this book at the truck stop he bought it from, there would have been just a swirling cloud of smoke and truck stop. There was never a truck stop on that at that exit.
A truck stop was killed this very night.
Here we get an email from Joel about about Harris's motivations. Charles E. Harris dreamed of being a tough, resourceful ex-Marine who traveled back in time to have Old West adventures and make love to a beautiful young American Indian. Especially to make love to a beautiful young American Indian. The dream was so compelling, he decided to bring it to life in novel form. But writing such a novel would put him in hot water with Mrs. Harris, his own real-life Miss Marie. What to do? His solution? Split his fantasy self into 2 completely different characters. One will be married and expound at length on his fidelity. The other will be single and free to take many canoe trips to the hot springs with his dewy new love. One can only imagine the huge pat on the back Mr. Harris must have given himself when he stumbled on this ingenious solution. He could have his cake and eat it too. That having exhausted his imaginative powers, we end up in Trucking Through Time with 2 protagonists who differ in only the most superficial ways as basically the same person and of one mind about everything. Dale is really just there to give Charles E. Harris cover as he lives vicariously through Chad.
Yeah, I think we had hit on this before. I think you're completely right about this. This is not Jekyll and Hyde level complexity. This is 100% Horny Grandpa, trying to get away with it.
Yes, definitely. You get a couple more fact checks. This first one is from Clayton. He says, I don't believe this has been covered in reader mail or on social media, but Fuzzy, Fusee, F-U-S-E-E, is slang for a road or railway flare. In wildland firefighting, they are used to ignite backfires and prescribe burns. It's even the preferred term for them. Presumably, this is to prevent confusion over the radio with other uses of the word flare. I would guess that truckers would understand fusies and Chattendale's fuzzies are a typo. However, it's still a rather mysterious typo as Fusee is pronounced Fusey or Fusey, which would not have been written as fuzzy in any dialect of American English, which I am familiar.
Oh, wow. Okay. So mystery solved?
Yeah.
I mean,
could be another regional East Tennessee.
Did he say that that's is that an acronym or something? or just
It doesn't appear to be. I mean, he even put like the diacritical like pronunciation. So he must have. It must be real, but yeah, who knows? But yeah, so you could get that wrong, I suppose, like calling a road flare something it's not, and then misspelling that thing that is not. Which, you know, again, after reading this book, I would not put that past him. This next one's from Josh. Cursory search for Sitting Bull online finds a lot of information about his history, parents, siblings, names he went by when he was younger, and approximately none of it matches with Slim Fox from the book. I know the internet wasn't as convenient a resource at the time. He shows like how undeveloped the Wikipedia page for Sitting Bull is at that time, which is pretty interesting. And it probably wouldn't have been too helpful anyway to an old trucker unfamiliar with computers, but surely some of this information could have been found if Harris had even just skimmed a biography.
I guess the thing is, like, you have to have some interest in it, right? And so then to get everything wrong is just, that's baffling to me.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not going to write a book about something of which I know nothing and have no interest in.
Yeah, unless, you know, you're doing a comedy, you know, if you're doing an episode of It's Always Sunny that travels back in time where the intention is just to name someone familiar and then they're just like a character in your TV show where you have no intent. It's just funny because it's Ben Franklin.
Yes, the meta comedy is this idiot won't know anything about this, so this is his mangled version of it.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, not what's happening. But yeah, very bizarre. Very, especially when, you know, the basic facts about Sitting Bull, James A. Garfield, would have been available in Microsoft Encarta or a World Book. And we get this last email is from Matt, who's also a Patreon supporter. The thought occurs, why did Chad and Dale need to be the ones brought back to help? They only used the following modern-era skills. 1. Modern medicine practices to help Slim Fox. Unclear if 2 truckers would have been the best people to pick for this. 2. Used karate to beat up some Indian guy. Unclear if this was necessary. 3. Used karate to beat up some army guy. Unclear if this was necessary. 4. Helped write a vague telegram about the general lying, which somehow stops the final conflict. Someone else could have done this even back then.
Well,
Chad
Christina
and Dale,
Troy, clearly, but
sure, yes. Chad and Dale seem to be bystanders for events outside of their control. What was the point of it all? Also, I'm not sure someone else mentioned it, but Sitting Bull was known as Jumping Badger as birth, not Slim Fox. I doubt the author even cared.
Wait, really? Is that a
Jumping Badger? Yeah, I mean, he could have put that as one of the names in his book, and I wouldn't have batted an eye.
Wow? That's a pretty good one.
But yeah, so there is no real reason that these two guys are there. Just I guess their lives are improved by finding love and his son finding love. But yeah, I guess you. When you're out on I-70, you just can never be prepared for what that thunder snow is going to do.
All right, one last thought, though. Is the person who marries his son in any way the same person? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is it, like some sort of reincarnation thing? Or
I think we have to be led to believe that it's like, yeah, a reincarnation thing.
So
I think it is.
In reincarnation, I've never understood and maybe someone can enlighten me on this. I've thought about it before, but if your memory is wiped clean, why does it matter who you were before? So if you're just a different person, but you somehow have a connection that you don't know to the previous person, do you know what I mean? Unless you're getting their memory and stuff, then I don't care that I was someone else.
I think it's like I think it's like you're just sort of like paying it forward. You're doing a good deed, even though it won't benefit. You'll have no knowledge that it benefits you, because if you're good, then in theory you'll come back in a situation where your life is better, right? So then the person that you then are will have a better life. If you're a shitty person, then you'll be, you know.
Yeah, but you can piss that down your leg right away, right? I mean, you're not. If you're the same moral agent, then look. All right, forget it.
Save it for the live show.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think that they are supposed to be reincarnated. She says, we'll meet again later, and I will live the rest of my life with that knowledge.
So again, implies the same person. But if it's just a reincarnation, you're not the same person.
But then again, this idiot is believing whatever a clairvoyant from Denver at lunch tells her. So I think that she's probably susceptible. Oh, so I'm this person from 200 years ago? Sounds good. Like, I've always felt that, actually, now that you mention it.
I would love that the fact that she just got sat with we're pretty full today, madam. I do have this table available for you.
Right, exactly.
There's a weird lady in a hat and wearing some sort of cape. Like, all right, I'll sit there. I need to get my soup and half sandwich. sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. They do stop dim sum in 20 minutes, so if you want to catch that, you're going to have to buddy up.
She starts reading her book, and the clairvoyant like coaxes her out of it. Like, no, talk to me, darling. Let me have your hand. Your fiance.
Oh, clairvoyant, sure, like just shoving breadsticks into her mouth.
Oh my gosh. Well, wow. That's it.
Well, yeah, Charles E. Harris's self-published Trucking Through Time. Why not? That was, what was it? 336 pages we'll never get back.
Oh my God. The last reading was 336 pages. I'll never get back. But yeah. All right. Well, folks who stayed on the journey with us, the folks who actually read it, I tip my hat. The folks who didn't read it, we
go to hell.
Yeah. We got something to talk about. Come to our live show. I'll buy you a beer and then I'll yell at you. So it might be worth it. Anyway, this is 372 pages. We'll never get back. I'm Michael J. Nelson.
I'm Connor Listoka. Talk to you next time.